So, to kick it off, let me get started. Like I said, first wanted to thank everyone. Really, when I first set up this conversation, I had it set as the ERG Movement launch party. Like, I was so excited overall just for the idea of ERGs being in a better space. That being said, as I was preparing the website and whatnot, the more I thought about it, I realized that, it's a moment to celebrate the launch, of course, for sure. But the state of ERGs in 2023 is not something to celebrate. That is something definitely not worth celebrating. I'm happy, like I said, that there is a movement, but at the end of the day, we shouldn't have gotten to this point where there is so much disorganization within the ERG space. And I don't want to start the new year off on such like a negative vibe, but it does need to be spoken about. And I don't think enough people are doing it. So, state of ERGs currently. I'm going to touch a little bit on how we got here in terms of this point with ERGs and ERG programs. I'll talk about what the ERG movement is, what's upcoming with it, and also I'll give some of my predictions for 2023 in terms of some trends that we'll see in the ERG space. And like I said, would love to hear from you all. Questions, it could be about the ERG movement, it can just be about ERGs in general, it could just be like us vibing on here, honestly. Whatever works for the next 23 and a half minutes. I'm really excited to speak with you all. So, real quick, the state of ERGs, how did we get to this point? A little bit of a history lesson for those of you who don't know. ERGs originally started coming out of the civil rights movement. A Black ERG was the first one. And honestly, a lot of the ERGs that came later were also results of world events that were happening, even just like the fueling of the ERGs. The ERG itself may not have been launched as a result to the world being in crisis, but definitely the fueling of it. And obviously we saw a really clear demonstration of that in 2020. So many things happened, and the ERG programs, in a sense, were fueled. Unfortunately, something that I say to people often is that you can't scale mess. And the ERG programs did not have organization at the time when they had all of this gasoline poured over them. So when ERGs blew up, in a sense, they blew up without any organization. And it's something that I've seen company across company so many times. In 2022, to be very clear, I had over 300 calls with ERG leaders, with ERG program managers, with diversity leaders, over 300. Really, I started it off because I wanted to learn more and I wanted to hear from people who were thriving from an ERG sense. But I quickly found out it is very few and far between, which is sad, but that's the reality of the situation. And the first step is admitting it, acknowledging. And I realized that there's just a boat of us who are all doing the same work over and over again, starting from scratch, trying to get our ERG programs to a new place that they've never been before. And it really didn't make any sense to me. Even within these ERG leader conversations where there would be big groups of us talking about what's worked and what hasn't in the company, which I still do love those spaces. At the end of the day, if we're all in the middle and just saying, we're trying this out and our ERG leaders are still burnt out, if we're all saying the same thing, kind of felt like in some ways the blind leading the blind. Even like experts in this space, ultimately, I was seeing over and over again that their ERG programs also lack basic structure, it's not a shady comment. It's just a fact of where we're at today. Like I said, admitting is the first step. So I've kind of been tiptoeing around it in a lot of my posts in 2022 and being very passive as I am. But honestly, we just got to say it like it is in 2023. We got to do better. And that is what the ERG movement is all about. So what is the ERG movement? The ERG movement is ERGs 2.0. If you're on this conversation, I said it earlier, there's a good chance that you already have access to the website. I can see when you all react. So give me a reaction if you got an email or if you are a subscriber already to the ERG movement, because that means that you probably did. Okay, cool. I'm seeing some reactions here. If you didn't, no worries. Right before we go into Q&A, I will just tell you all the link that you can put in. It won't be live, but I'll give you all like the secret link. This way you can get in on it. So, because yeah, as an appreciation for you all showing up here. Ultimately, with the ERG movement, one thing that I realized, for those of you who don't know me, by the way, I'm always terrible at introducing myself. My name's Maceo. Pronouns are she, her. And really, my background is not traditional to the D&I ERG space. Truthfully, I haven't been in it that long. But that being said, I have been able to apply so many of the learnings from other industries into the building of ERG programs at different companies. And I started to realize that while it seemed like all of us were trying to build an ERG program in a way that's never been done before, it actually has been done, but just in other industries and across different programs. So by applying those learnings, tweaking them to fit within the ERG industry, that is what ultimately birthed this new train of thought of what ERGs are currently and what they can be. So the ERG movement has a few different components to it. I would actually say the most important thing, and the thing that I highly encourage you all to read over this week, and not just like a quick glance over, but really to study, is the ERG movement model. I have spent about 6 months creating this ERG development model that's really based on the development of a really good business. All of the applications and learnings that I've gotten apply directly. And you'll see that, especially if you're interested in business in any sort of way, you'll start to see a lot of those parallels. That being said, I highly recommend that you check out the ERG movement model. I'll speak a little bit about that next week, what it is, break down all the phases. For context, there's 3 phases, breaking down ERG into infancy stage, adolescent stage, and maturity. To be clear, this is very different than the traditional affinity group, ERG, BRG business model, ERG model, which I do not subscribe to or believe in at all, quite frankly. And there's actually an article on the ERG movement it's on there now, and it explains why you all probably just should take another look ultimately at that model and maybe reconsider if you're going to use it at your company. I'll just throw it out there. But I'm not just saying to listen, like I said, to the ERG movement model and to apply it at your company just because I wrote it. But also, like I said, I am literally taking advice from experts in other industries and making it apply. And I will tell you all, the parallels are insane. So highly encourage you all to take a look at that. There will be so much more content coming out around that. So you can definitely keep a lookout for that. In addition to the movement model itself, we also have blog posts available on the ERG movement. In the future, we'll even open it up to members to talk about some of the successes that they have had at their organization around specific wins, less of like bigger, broader program structure type things, but more so like what are some things that you have been able to bring to life at your company. So looking forward to that. But in the meantime, there's actually 20 blog posts that are up right now. I really wanted to get more out for you all, but it really came down to, am I going to launch on time or am I going to get everything perfect? So we're launching on time, and I think that there's definitely enough content on there to keep you all occupied, if I'm being perfectly honest. So we have blog posts. The other thing that is currently live, blog posts. Oh, and we'll be having events. So I honestly think that there are enough networking, like in group settings, that already exist. So these are more one-to-one networking. One of the events is sponsored by Check-In. Really cool. It's almost like Donut. But you'll be able to connect one-to-one, 15-minute calls with other ERG leaders, so you can definitely go and RSVP for one of those events. That's basically currently what's up on the site. However, there is so much coming in the very near future. Starting later this week, we'll be opening up the ERG leader community. This way you all can speak on our communications platform. With that, there's going to be a lot of best practices shared, obviously from others in the industry, but even just around how do you communicate with your members? You'll be able to get those best practices from being in the community and seeing how the ERG movement communicates with its members. There will be different channels for all of the different ERG leader communities. This way, all of the women's ERG leaders will be able to come together. All of the Pride ERG leaders will be able to come together. So all of those communities will exist. We'll really be able to, in that way, niche down a lot of our learnings that we'll get. So I'm really excited for that. And I'll just say we already have over 200 members in the ERG movement. So I know that this community is going to be big. Definitely excited for that. So we'll have a community in addition. The week after that, what I'm really excited to be launching is I'm calling it ERG Land, which is really the latest on ERGs, like what's happening in the ERG space. I already have over 500 submissions in terms of cool events and initiatives and projects that ERGs have brought to their company that are in there with pictures. Literally over 500 are already there. And I'm going to open up the form soon. This way you all will be able to submit things that happen in your company as well. So this will be a really good way to just have like an idea space for your ERGs. You'll be able to filter it by community or even by initiative. So if you want to see, hey, what are some video projects that our ERG can do? Or what are some community service projects that our ERG can do specific to the Black community? You're able to have all of those filters in there. And I'm so excited for that because I feel like oftentimes we're looking up what are we going to do for our next event. This is just a really good way to see what's worked. So that'll be great. 2 more things. That's literally still not it with the ERG movement. There's 2 more things that we'll be launching this month. I would have launched it today, like I said, but it was either launch on time or make everything perfect. So we're on time. So the following week after that, I will be launching the ERG Square, which will be basically like a marketplace for the ERGs. Like we're always looking for good vendors and speakers to bring to our company. This is just a really good way to have them in one place and also have recommendations from other companies. Think of it almost like a Yelp for ERGs. This way we're able to see like credited speakers and like, oh, someone can say, oh yeah, I definitely brought them to our company. It was such a great event, etc. So I'm sure if you've been in the ERG space for any amount of time, you've experienced, not every speaker is amazing, which I'm not saying that to say not everyone should get a chance, but I do think that ERGs can be a little bit more prepared in who they bring to the company. And so by having this space, you'll be able to make a more educated decision when you go to decide who you want to bring in. So I'm excited for that piece. And the last part will be the ERG podcast. Like I said, I'm recording this conversation and it will actually be episode 1 of the ERG podcast, which is freaking me out if I'm being honest. But you got to do it ugly and you got to just do it. So I'm getting started with it. With the ERG podcast, I will be teaching on there. But in addition to that, I will also be bringing you all on, leaders, community leaders and program managers on to hear a little bit more kind of what I talked about earlier, those really hyper specific things that your organization has been successful at. I already have a list of people. I see some of you all on here now that I said, hey, I'm definitely going to bring you on my podcast when I launch it. So just expect some sort of communication from me this week so we can get that started. But I'm really excited this way on that ERG land space where you have that idea mode area. You'll also be able to hear directly from those leaders as they talk through how they brought it to life. Because it's one thing to see and say, oh, that's really cool that it was successful. But sometimes it's like, where do I even start to bring it to life? So that's the ERG movement. It's a lot to it. And honestly, I've been working on it for so long. I'm like excited that it's launching. Also frustrated that it's not perfect, but it is what it is. By the end of this month, we'll be in pretty good standing, I'll say. And honestly, like I said, we're already in good standing. So that is what the ERG movement is. It's really and truly ERGs 2.0. And everyone who joins as a member of the ERG movement, it's just a clear sign. And I guess it goes to show how many people also recognize that there's work to be done in this ERG space. And I feel really great knowing that I'm not alone in this. So shout out to all of you too for also realizing like it's time to do better. And collectively, even with the ERG movement model, like I'm open to conversations and making it better and improving it. I think that really a huge part of the ERG movement model is what can we all do if we have a really good foundation in terms of what ERGs are. So it's like I kind of started that off with creating the movement model, but now that we're all on the same page, how can we really start to get into the fun things? How can we get into segmented marketing for our ERGs? How can we get into what is like real business impact at scale and creating standard operating procedures for our members and our leaders and all the real nitty-gritty things that sometimes we can overstress about currently. I'm excited to get into those things, but we all just have to be on the same page. Right now, there's so many different definitions around what's an ERG, what's not an ERG. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the ERG, BRG conversation, which we're not going to get into that right now. But like I said, there's an article on the ERG movement that talks about it. So anyway, I'm done ranting. I will say I did tell you all I was going to do 3 predictions for what I feel is going to come up this year with the ERG space, not just specifically with the ERG movement. And I'll stay on here probably to like 12:15 because I was supposed to do more Q&A time. And I can literally talk about ERGs all day. But anyway, prediction number 1. I do think with the push for global engagement from ERG members across the board, I'm hearing it across company, like how do we get people engaged in ERGs regardless of where they are? I think that there will be hopefully a rise in asynchronous activity and getting members involved, less in what can we do in a live event and more so what can we do asynchronously. What that'll look like, I'm excited to see. That's one of the main filtered tags that I'm so excited to see populate over time is how people are engaging their ERGs members regardless of where they are and not necessarily in real time. That's one of the things that we'll definitely see. Thing number 2, I only have 3, so I'm keeping it brief. Thing number 2, this is not something that I think most people want to hear, but also just with us talking about having real conversations about ERGs, realistically, a lot of people are going to have to restart their ERG program. What does restarting the ERG program mean? I mean, a lot of ERGs were launched in a rush without a lot of this foundational work. No clear vision for the ERG program. A lot of the grassroots efforts, we hear that a lot, and there's also an article on the ERG movement that talks about that too. That being said, in order for us to grow, sometimes in order for us to move forward, we have to take a step back first. And that's something that we're going to see a lot in 2023. More and more, I think that people, even the ERG leaders with the burnout piece, they're starting to see the need. Okay, yeah, I started the ERG program by myself with my bare hands and I love it, but they would much rather see an ERG program that's thriving than it's still operating under their terms alone. And it's going to definitely be a pride hit to maybe the ERGs and maybe to you if you've been at the company and you've been trying to patch the ERG up and all the holes that exist within it. But honestly, over time, we're going to see we just have to take it back to the basics, back to that infancy stage that the ERG movement talks about. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that. And it's not something to be ashamed of. That's the great part about the ERG movement is now you have a community of other leaders who are advocating for your ERG's success by that process. Thing number 3, I think that we are going to see proof of concept of the ERG movement's model. And obviously that's like a plug. But at the same time, truly, I think as you all read it, like I said, I more than welcome your feedback. I'm really excited actually to get you all's thoughts on it. But I think that we'll start to see the parallels between ERG operations and a real solid business operation strategy. I'm reading so many books and things like that around business operations, and I'm realizing this is what we've been missing this whole time. So I think that we'll see a lot of proof of concept in that space. Okay, I am done ranting officially. I am excited. Oh, and I told you I was going to give you the link. So the link, or Well, it's launching in 5 minutes, but if you want like a 5-minute head start, you can go to theergmovement.com/home. HOME, like your house, home. And that's just going to take you to the home page. Truthfully, I could just make it live, but I'm going to be a woman of my word. So we said 12. I'm not going to get overexcited. That is an ERG leader lesson to all of you ERG leaders out there. Are part of, like, it takes people to make a movement. So we have people here, and like, that's really, really dope. So that concludes today's session and ultimately episode 1 of the ERG Movement Podcast. And it's going to be posted on our YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube channel. We're on TikTok. Trying to be on the social media streets here. So you'll be seeing a lot of content from me. Prepare to be sick of me, as they say, but in the best way. So anyway, like I said, off my soapbox, officially looking forward to being in this space. I think I'm just going to stick with LinkedIn audio because video never works for me. And I will catch you all next week, and we're really going to dive into the movement. So come with your questions. Make sure that you review it in advance. There's 3 phases to the ERG movement, and there's also a page that speaks about my framework, how I came up with this, all the things. So check it out. We'll talk about it next week. Have a great one, everyone, and I'm looking forward to having a really amazing 2023.